Hi, and this is Miesha, Johnston. No music? Okay. Okay, so this is Miesha Johnston, and thank you for coming to our show today. I have Dr. Michael Carter, who has written the wonderful book Scriptures and the Bible. I believe that's the name of it, but I'm going to check that. But first of all, I'd like to just make a couple of announcements about our group here, Starseed Awakening. So Starseed Awakening has two groups monthly here through the meetup, and they are the first Friday and the third Friday of every month. This coming Friday, we will have our experiencer group on the Friday the 5th, and then Friday the 13th, we are going to have, and this is, who cares about bad luck? Friday the 13th is going to be a barrel of fun. We're going to have our annual luau picnic and barbecue at my clubhouse, and so please, bring your favorite dish and be ready to swim. Have your swimming suit with you. We have swimming and jacuzzi and pool room and all kinds of things. We're going to be having karaoke. We're going to have some hula lessons and all kinds of fun things. Dance lessons, the electric slide, the limbo, all kinds of things. So please come and join us. And then, of course, on my Internet Starseed group, I have 2 groups a week. I have one every Wednesday. I have the Experiencer group on the Google Hangout. And if you go to my Starseed Awakening Facebook and join that, you'll get all the events. Also, every Sunday at 11 a.m. Now, that's at 4 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, 4 to 6. And then that's Pacific Standard Time. And then on Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 2, we have another Experiencer Starseed group. And then we also have a MyLab NK Ultra group, and I have another person facilitating that for me, and that is Cat Bull, and that is on Monday at 4 to 7. So we have lots going here in Las Vegas, so I'd love to have you join us here. I will be on a radio show tomorrow on 4 Real Talk Radio at 4 to 6, or 5 to 7 tomorrow. So come and listen in. I'll be talking about my own experiences. So let me see. I think we have got everything we need from my experience. That's where you're hearing us good, right? I guess so. Alrighty. So then I would like to tell you about our guest. Dr. Carter has been a long-time UFO experiencer. He lectures extensively on the topic of the religion and UFOs. He has appeared on Sci-Fi Channel, Steven Spielberg's production of Abduction Diaries, The Real 4400, and is a frequent guest on the History Channel's production of Ancient Aliens. Reverend Carter has written a book entitled Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible. His book is available on Brave Distractions Publishing Company, and I will be giving you the information on that, but that's on Amazon. So you really, all you have to do is just punch in the name, and you can just get it any place on Amazon there for you. Now, I'm going to go ahead and let, we're going to go by Michael, and Michael will be sharing more about his life, about his experience, how he got started. I understand he's also a pastor, so, it's interesting, Michael, that I was raised in a pretty fundamentally Christian school, not school, but church, that aliens and everything like that were absolutely taboo. So how did you come about getting started in this, and how did you not be nailed to the cross for this?
Hi, Miesha. First of all, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's a great question. Listen, I was not into this at all. I mean, I was raised as a Baptist. I guess fundamentalistic would be the word used. And I remember, I grew up in Baltimore, and I lived in New York for 30 years before moving to the Southland here in North Carolina. But, I remember someone asking me while I was in downtown Baltimore, I was just strolling around, someone said to me, a friend of mine said, "You don't believe in UFOs?" And I said, "Of course not." And they had a strange look on their face, like, "What?" And they said, "Why?" I said, "Because it's not in the Bible." So I can relate now. Here we are, some 40-some years later, and this is what I'm writing about. Now, I'm now with the Unitarian Universalist denomination, which is pretty progressive, and I don't preach this from my pulpit, I don't, but they've seen me on Ancient Aliens, that some of them some of my congregants may be listening to us tonight, and people change, things evolve. People can talk openly about this now, but yeah, I grew up probably a lot like you did. It wasn't even talking about off-world intelligences. It was just asking questions anyway about anything that wasn't along the line of doctrine or the dogma that we were taught that was just a no-no. Mm-hmm. So, what happened was this. And I talk about it in my book, but back in 1989, I was on the Yucatan Peninsula with, at that time, my girlfriend, and we had gone to Cancun, and we went to see the pyramids at Chichen Itza in Tulum. I was living in New York then, and that was wonderful. And, that may have been the first or second time I had ever really been out of the country. My girlfriend at the time was a world traveler. Anyway, so we got back to New York, and I had been invited to a party, and it was freezing back home, and so I was tired, but I wanted to go to the party just to show off my pictures, and I was in the sun, and it was 85, 90 degrees, and it was below, it was like below 32 degrees. So I went for about 90 minutes. No adult beverages. I maybe had like some deviled eggs and potato salad, just something to munch on. I was tired, and I left, caught the subway back home. Lived on the Upper West Side. And that, even to this day, I don't remember whether I just had to get up to go to the bathroom or whatever, but I got up, and my room was lit with this cobalt blue light. My girlfriend would not wake up. I thought my heart was going to come out of my chest, and there was a being at the edge of my bed looking at me, and this individual had, it was chalk white color. It wasn't gray, even though it looked like what we would call the gray, with the big pear-shaped head and the eyes, very thin, and the jumpsuit, it was a tight-fitting suit. It looked like aluminum foil.
Uh-huh.
And I stared at it. It stared at me. And I got to tell you, I'm not a macho individual. I pulled the covers up over my head and hid under the covers. And I heard this sound that was like a whoosh. It was whoosh, whoosh. And I felt the temperature change, and I could swear to you that I was outside. I was freezing. I pulled the cover down. I was back in my room. It was like nothing ever happened. This went on twice a month for about 8 months, every full and new moon, like clockwork. And but then I'd be paralyzed when they came. Mm-hmm. So I went to a psychiatrist.
Oh, of course.
because I feared for my sanity. And I went to the late Dr. Jean Monday, and she regressed me. And years after that, I was very friendly with the late Bud Hopkins, and so Bud had regressed. We did a conference together on Long Island, and he said, "Well, yeah, you should let me regress you." And they were both very good at what they did, but it was real. This was actually happening to me. I'm not a mechanical, technological person. And so I'm not really interested in propulsion systems and reverse engineering. I mean, I know all that goes on. I was more interested in, which is probably why I was so much drawn to the late John Mack's work, about the spiritual implications of this, the transformation of consciousness. How does one relate to other people, whether they're off-world or whether they're here, after you've had these kind of contacts? Now, my contacts have not been, sure, there was the fear factor, but nothing, no anal probes, I mean, I've had some things happen to me that were painful, but that's why I don't use the word abductee about myself. I'm an experiencer, I'm a contactee. And this has been going on to, this very day. But it got me into, wow, what would this mean for religion? And then I went to the library. I ran and started reading stuff by Dr. Barry Downing, who's a friend and colleague of mine. We have a very different theology. We have a very different take. Not very different. At least we both acknowledge that these the monotheistic religions were probably started by off-world intelligences. It's just that Barry will say, I'll say, "Barry, what kind of God would kill the firstborn Egyptians to prove a point?" Barry would say, "Well, these are the ways of God. We don't understand that." I say, "That's a cop-out. That's not ethical to me. That's not moral to me. That's not a person I could give my allegiances to."
No.
But he was a pioneer in the field. Dr. Virginia Brasington, who was, we needed some female energy in the field, and she's long since died, but she lived here in Asheville, North Carolina, and she had written a book about UFOs in the Bible. Of course, Morris K. Jessup, who died under mysterious circumstances back in the 50s, and I started devouring these works. R.L. Dion's work, this God Drive a Flying Saucer, because I was more interested in the religious aspects of the spiritual aspects of these contacts. And that's how I got to where I am today.
Well, so they gave you a wake-up call, I take it.
Yes, that's putting it mildly.
Well, they'll do that, I'll tell you. They will. They'll shake people to the bones. To wake up to their missions.
Yes, and you know what? That's the best way to put it. Because I was an actor in New York. I was a real party guy. I mean, I was studying religion and comparative religions, but, I was just hanging out. If I did a show, I was going to parties afterwards or whatever. And, it was just like them saying to me, "This is not what you signed up for. It's fun, but this is not what you signed up for." So it was a wake-up call.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's pretty interesting. I love that. So now, would you like it to go a little bit more into your background, or would you like to start talking about the scriptures?
Well, we have time. We can get into all that. What can I tell you? I'm a dad. I've been married for 10 years. I have an 8-year-old. I'm the minister I serve a Unitarian Universalist congregation here in Western North Carolina. I think I told you I was raised Baptist. The book Alien Scriptures was my master's thesis. Mm-hmm. I went to one of the top seminaries in the country. I went to Union Theological Seminary in New York. I'm very proud of that. And I graduated class of 2000, and I'm standing on the shoulders of a lot of people. Of course, my wife, my publicist, my publisher, good friends, other experiencers, but especially I want to mention Union because I don't know how many other seminaries would have said, "Okay, that's an appropriate topic
Right.
For you to write about. I mean, I envision other seminaries saying, "You got to be kidding me! You're not going to graduate from here, but you better find something else to write about." And they just embraced it. And even a couple of my systematic theology professors asked me if I wanted to stay on for a PhD. I mean, I was just very, very surprised. But looking back, maybe I shouldn't have been because, we all have our guides and spirits, and this was the way it was supposed to work out. So I added more to it, of course. I added my own experiences to the book, and I added some chapters on the Quran and my own personal learnings, because the book is in its second edition. But basically, this started out as my master's thesis.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yes, very interesting. That must have shook a few people.
Oh, it did. Mm-hmm. Listen, it shook me because see, when I first wrote it, Miesha, I didn't put my I didn't put my contact experiences in it. I was still in the closet about that. I just did the research, and I didn't talk about my experiences. And my first publisher at Blue Star Productions, it was just a small publishing house out in Arizona. Barbara DeBolt was the publisher. She said, "Michael, you got to tell your story. That's what's going to make it intriguing. You've got to tell your story." And and I did. And I got to tell you, these past few years, I mean, it's just been what I couldn't talk about, or felt I couldn't talk about, or didn't have the cojones to talk about 15 years ago. I mean, now it's yes, you get people who snicker, and some people who just may look at you kind of cockeyed, but most people, they're into it. That's why a show like Ancient Aliens can run for 7 seasons, because there's an audience for it. And so I'm very grateful, and I'm also very fortunate.
Yes. Well, that's a perfect show to be on, to get your story out, and that it's really important, and that it's so important for people.
Well, they don't ask me about my personal story, but they use me for my expertise on biblical topics. No, they don't ask people, have you been contacted or experienced, but they just have me on for my book, and for the topics, if I have a particular expertise in whatever they need. But still, it gets the word out, because that's what I think it's about. It's about getting the word out. And actually, for me, it's also about, okay, how do we take this information and make it wisdom? How do we use these encounters to become more loving, more forgiving, more holistic human beings? That's where I really get off on. That's what I really, because I mean, yes, once we find out, and once we know now that we are and have always been visited, and probably had been created by some of these intelligences, now what? What do we do now? How do I love my neighbor? How do I, tomorrow morning when I get up and have to go out into the world, what kind of person am I going to be with, after these encounters? That is what gets, floats my boat, as it were.
Those are very important questions. And since you feel your experience is as a contact versus abduction, and we don't actually use that word, interestingly enough, anymore. We don't. When I first started this in 1992 with experiencer groups, that word was the word. But now we don't, because so many people come full circle after hearing about, and after seeing what their experiences were about, and what the result of what happened to them, and how it helped and changed their life, and brought them to be more spiritual, more psychic, more open and awake, that there's no more experiencers. Of course, we're not saying that 100% of everybody's experience is positive, because that's not the case. But I believe it's a majority, for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, people have to identify and label their experiences the way, and I know some people, and that's where Bud and I used to differ. There were two support groups, and most of the people, if not all, in Bud's group were, they had been traumatized, and they had been victimized, and that's very real. I mean, ovum being taken, men having sperm taken, rectal pro. I mean, just horrific violations, and that was real. And I just wanted to be a voice that said, okay, that's real, but there's another side to this. My experiences have not been that. And so that way we can all have our realities and not have people saying, well, that's not true. That can't happen. Because we do know that a lot of these beings are, some of them are more, are very benevolent and some aren't. They're just like people. Everybody doesn't want to sing Kumbaya and hold your hand. And there's some people that are here for our spiritual growth. And so it's just about the gift of discernment and learning to discern the different energies and how we can relate to them and which ones we need to be cautious about. At least that's been my experience.
Exactly. And, I've noticed, that's a perfect word, discernment. I've talked this about with my group people and such, that discernment is so very important that people need to realize their own discernment. I mean, if you have an experience and you're not feeling that unconditional love yet, they're trying to say that they're good beings and all this, but you're not feeling it, then you need to trust that discernment.
Exactly. And that's difficult to do for a lot of people because we don't trust it. Mm-hmm. And so part of, I think, of being on a genuine spiritual path is to cultivating that. And sometimes we're going to make mistakes, just like we do with human beings.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes we get got, as they say. But you got to learn to trust it. Because if you don't, you're a mess.
That's right. That's very true. So,
I'm loving it. I'm loving the conversation.
Yeah, me too. And I'd like to just get a little bit more on your experience. So, if we may, it is how tall were the beings?
Oh, let me tell you. Okay, let me speak a little more freely.
Please.
I've had initially it was just these little brothers and sisters who were like chalk-colored and small. Okay, right. We could call them grays. They're different various species of grays. They didn't look gray, I'll put it like that. But they would come. And sometimes they would have, I guess we would call them hoodies. They would have these little kind of monk robes on. Right. And they would kind of float when they walked. I mean, it wasn't even like they were walking. It was like they were, I can't even do it, but it was like a little glide or something. And they were very playful, and they would show me pictures in my head, you see. They would show me pictures. And at first it took a while for them to they wouldn't, I didn't hear the voices of them until later, but they would show me pictures, past life pictures. Mm-hmm. They would show me like what they wanted me to do. I'm an energy healer, and I wasn't using it as much. I had taken Reiki and all this, and then when they started coming, I don't know what's coming out of my hands. But after a while, I wasn't using it as much. And then one time they came, and then they would stop paralyzing. I don't know why they did. Maybe they were afraid, or they thought I would hurt them or hurt myself. But then they wouldn't paralyze them. And one time they showed me a picture of these hands in prayer with a red thunderbolt. And it was like, look. They were trying to show me, use this energy. Pray, meditate, use this energy. And then the reptilian brother came. And he walked right through my wall. And he spoke to me in my head. His lips, they didn't move. Now, he scared the bejesus out of me. I got to tell you that. Because he was like with alligator skin, mm-hmm. A tail, big like he went to the gym or something.
Right.
And he looked like maybe a little bit like Spider-Man, but with a reptilian, with alligator skin.
Right.
And they came twice. But they did not hurt me, but just seeing that can give you a heart attack. Walked right through my, on the 15th floor of the Excelsior Hotel on 45 West 81st Street. Walked right in, walked right out, told me not to be afraid, just looked at me, just stared at me, and walked out. Now, those were the two I would see regularly. Of late, and it was then a couple years I didn't see anybody. My life was very busy. It was maybe they said his hands are full. I got married. Became a father. But for a couple of years I was in seminary. Then no one showed up. At least not overtly like that. I would have dreams, but nobody walking through my wall or coming in on blue lights. Now, this past year, end of 2013 and 2014, new beings have come, and they're very tall. They're very tall. They have, again, it's with the monk's robe. Maybe it's a fashion statement.
Yeah.
They're like, Nordic, Copenhagen, that kind of look.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and never seen these folks. Yeah, right. I'm telling you, very tall. I'm 6'1". These people are tall.
Whoa.
And there's just such a feeling of love that comes from them. And I had a blood clot last year. Let me put all this in context for you. My dad had died at the beginning of 2013. I had lost my job. It's like a country western song, a blues song. My wife and I had separated. We are since then back together. And so I lost my job. I had the blood clot. My dad had died. I mean, it was like, come on. What else could go wrong? And I'm a very thin person, and I didn't know I had a blood clot. I never had a blood clot before. I thought I pulled a muscle in my leg, but the pain wouldn't go away for any length of time. I would put the energy on it with my hands. It would go away for about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Then it would come back. I talked to my ex-wife, because we're very good friends, and I said, man, I don't know what to do with this. I ice it, and then, she said, Michael, you're not supposed to be in that kind of pain. You need to go to a doctor. So the next day I went to my doctor, my primary care guy. My leg was swollen like I was LeBron James. I wish I had muscles in my legs like that. And so the doctor said, leave here right now. Do you need me to call? Can you drive? I had to go get an MRI. I had a blood clot. They call it deep vein thrombosis from the bottom of my right ankle all the way up to the groin area. Wow. I was injecting myself with enoxaparin to try to dissolve the clot, and I was on Coumadin. And, they said if it had burst, it would have ruined my day. So, I didn't feel like I was going to die, but maybe I was in denial. I just, you just had a feeling. But I was in a lot of pain. On July 4th, 2013, at 10 minutes to 9 p.m., there was a thunderstorm, and all the fireworks were canceled. My wife likes to go see the fireworks. I can't stand it because the mosquitoes eat you up the whole bit. But anyway, thank goodness it rained, so they canceled it. So they went back to their home because we were separated at the time. I went back to my apartment, and it was just all this thunder and lightning. I had a lot of friends who fought in Vietnam, and they would tell me stories, and I said, I couldn't go to sleep. And they were telling me, I said, this must have been like for them, 25, 30 years ago in these jungles. And then I heard this buzzing sound, bzz, 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 and I couldn't move. And then I kind of willed myself to move. I'm wide awake now. And I turn around, and there's this tall brother. It felt like a male. It looked like a male, but it had the hoodie on. It looked like they came from Sweden or something. They were very, very pale, though. And in my mind, his voice said, it was a deep one, don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. And he put his hand out, and this kind of green beam came out of his hand, and it hit me in my stomach. I didn't feel any pain. And then he dissolved, like like on a TV screen, just dissolved.
Right.
And so I wrote it down. I called my wife. I called my support group in New York, and of course, no one picked up. It was kind of late, I guess. And I looked down at my leg the next morning, and it was normal.
Whoa.
And I didn't think about taking a selfie or anything like that. I just marveled. I told my wife and daughter, because they know I have these experiences, and they knew how big my leg was. I had to go to the doctor to tell him what happened to my leg. Now, I couldn't tell. Of course, I didn't tell him what I'm telling you.
Oh, of course.
But he just couldn't believe that. Because 10 days later, I go every 10 days to get, so they can stick me in my finger to see what my blood thing is. And I finally talked him out of keeping me on the Coumadin. And I just said to him after a while, I said, aren't you happy? I don't understand it. You did the best you could. You helped me. Why can't you just be happy? But, they're doctors. They have to know why. Yeah. But so that's my healing story.
That is wonderful. I have a friend, Preston Dennett. I'm sure you know him.
You know what? Yeah, I know. I got two of his books.
One of his first books was called UFO Healings, True Account People Healed by Extraterrestrials.
Yes, I'm looking at it.
So it's wonderful to hear one of them right here on my show today. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. That is absolutely phenomenal. It's interesting. We have some parallel things going on here. I had a chalky white kind of bean that I had, and I called him the willowy one because he kind of willily moved and walked like that,
Yes.
Sounded like yours. I had reptilian that have been nothing but absolutely unconditionally loving beings to me, and in fact have saved my life on 2 different occasions. I can absolutely attest to that. And then I've had a couple other types. I've not had any humans, so I'm ready for some Nordics or something like that. If they want to show up too, I'm ready.
I promise you they will, because I just couldn't believe it. And they're here. My friends in Europe used to always say that. They would say, I have friends in Germany and in Britain, and they would say, I never see the little gray people. I always see the Nordic people. And then I would read some literature, and it would be, but now I guess they go anywhere they want to at this point.
Yeah, it could have been to that quarantine thing that they had until it was lifted on somewhere on 2012. Yeah. And before that, there was the quarantine, and they could have been only allowed to go just a certain area, because I know what you mean. A lot of my people that are actually in my my internet experiencing group that live in Europe and such tell exactly the same thing. A lot of Nordic types, and yet they'll hear them and they have totally, it's not a human language. They'll either do it telepathically or they'll hear this interesting kind of a guttural, tonal sounds and stuff like that. In fact, I don't know if you've heard of this yet, but there are more and more of us who are getting this, what we call galactic language, that we're hearing, and we're sharing it, and then also sometimes the translation comes along with it. Did you hear any other?
You know what I've been hearing, which I haven't heard before, and when it's like bees buzzing.
Ah, yes.
Okay, and I don't know what that is, to be honest with you, and I don't have the presence of mind to ask what the hell is that noise. But allegedly, if you read some of the literature around Fatima and the events that occurred there, either some of the people or the children said that they. When the apparition spoke, it was like bees buzzing.
Ah, that's that frequency that they're hearing. I think there's a definite frequency that goes
that's what I hear. It's like there's some bees in my room right before they show up.
Mm-hmm. That's right. We kind of call that, and it's only in your ears. I mean, was in the room, they wouldn't hear it. It's coming through your hearing, through your head, through your ears. What we're not positive sure, but it's localized to the person who's having the experience.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, this and the journey continues, and in the book, of course, I started trying to read some of the gospel stories, and of course the First Testament, what we call the Old Testament, and just looking at the events, whether we're talking about the Exodus story, whether we're talking about, obviously, the stories of Jesus, whether we're talking about Ezekiel and the wheel and all that. And I just started looking at them in a different light, and just really trying to say, we may be worshiping, and my second book deals more with this, but as people of faith, the ET that we were taught to worship, Yahweh, was an ET, and he is not, at least to my mind, if one would want to use the word God or first cause or primal cause or source, or call it what you will, he's not the one. Mm-hmm. And that a lot of the strife, and there are good things about religion, please, I don't want you to hear any, but a lot of the things that Yahweh did, we need to question, is this someone that we need to be giving allegiance to? Is this someone that you want to pray to? Is this someone, because he's done some pretty horrible things. And so I'm trying to get people to say, no, you don't have to toss religion out. You don't have to toss your Bible, your Quran, your Dhammapada, or your Old Testament out, or your Mahabharata or your Upanishads. You don't have to get rid of that. Mm-hmm. But it's time to grow up and look at who we say we worship and what we say we worship in a different light, because now we have to join a galactic community and we have to be mature. And you have to ask, you couldn't ask those questions. Why would a God ask someone to sacrifice their child just to see how much faith they had? What kind of God is a jealous God? What kind of God says, I'm going to drown everybody and start all over again? What kind of God would have, and I can get into chapter and verse if you want. I'm looking at the book of Ezekiel now, the Hebrew translation. Uh-huh. And there's a story here, which you're not going to hear preached on Sunday or tonight at Shabbos, but where Ezekiel is asked to eat excrement. Well, not asked, he's told to. Whoa. And it says right here, Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 12. He's talking to the Lord. Now, this could be Yahweh, or it could be the captain of a ship, because they're used interchangeably. But he says, eat it as a barley cake. You shall bake it on human excrement before their eyes. So, says the Lord, shall the people of Israel eat their bread, unclean among the nations to which I will banish them. Then I said, this is Ezekiel, he's saying, but Lord God, my person was never defiled, nor have I eaten anything that died of itself, or was torn by beasts from my youth until now, nor has foul flesh entered my mouth. In other words, he's saying, look, brother, I keep kosher. And the Lord answered me and says, see, I allow you cow's dung instead of human excrement. Prepare your bread on that. I'm like, what a guy. What a guy. I don't have to eat human manure. I can eat cow manure. This is not a God that I want to be anywhere near.
Exactly.
Of course, the men, women, and children, you go into the land of Canaan and you kill all the men, women, and children. In Jeremiah, he says, the Lord says, I will smash them one against the other, parents and children alike, declares the Lord. No pity, compassion, or mercy will stop me from destroying them. And this is in Jeremiah 13, verse 14. And so people, we don't question that.
Right.
That's, and I think we need to question that. But I also think we need to look at, Isaiah 40, where it says here, it is he who sits upon the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain. I mean, that's a view from above. Where's Isaiah getting that information? Obviously, he's getting it from off-world intelligences. The book of Job, the Lord says to Job, who made the Orion and the Pleiades? This is chapter 9, verse 9.
Wow.
So the clues are there. Ray Charles can see it, that these are astronauts.
Right, they are.
And we've mistaken them for gods. And so,
God.
yes, for the one all supreme. And so that's what my first book is going through the Bible and the Quran and talking about this. And the book that it's now being edited is what do we do now? Now that we have this information, a lot of ancient astronaut theorists, they stop at, okay, these are astronauts. Okay, we know that. Great, wonderful. Now what? Do we stop there? Are you saying there's no God? And that's okay too. Everybody doesn't have to believe in a creator. Can we use another name for this God? What can we glean? That you don't want to throw out the prophets of the Old Testament. Their teachings on justice, Amos, Ezekiel, Jeremiah. This is what Dr. King based his theology on, this sense of justice. I think it's wonderful. But Jesus comes along, and he says, okay, now you got to bring your A game. Now you just don't love other Jews. Anybody can do that. Now you got to what? You got to love your enemies. Mm-hmm. You have to love the Romans. You have to love the Gentiles, the uncircumcised one. And so he takes it up a notch. And of course, in my cosmology, I say that he was a hybrid.
That's why the love came in, because he felt.
He says, my kingdom's not of this world. Mary gets pregnant. She gets pregnant, and so if my mother's human and my father's not, then I'm not fully human.
Exactly. I've always thought that.
Yes.
That he was a hybrid. Mm-hmm.
I think he's a hybrid. He's constantly saying, my kingdom is not of this world. And so these teachings are off-world intelligence. How do I love? How do I cultivate my inner life? How do I love my enemies? How do I deal with empire? Rome was the empire. Some would argue that we're the empire. Now, the United States. We could make an argument for that. And so, how do I keep my integrity in the age of empire? Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world. I go back to the Father. He's using the vernacular of his day, but if that is his Father. His father impregnated a human woman, and he because virgin doesn't mean the word is alma in Hebrew, A-L-M-A. Virgin doesn't mean a woman who hasn't had her hymen broken. A virgin in Hebrew means young girl.
Oh, really?
Saint Jerome changed it to virgin because Jesus could not have. They didn't want Jesus being associated with women. Yes. Women were supposed to be, the tempters and what have you. Yeah, virgin in Hebrew doesn't mean a woman never made love. It means that she was young. Now, we know with the technology that these brothers and sisters could do artificial insemination, those kinds of things. And remember, Joseph, the angel has to go to Joseph and say, look, I got this. I know it doesn't look good because she's pregnant by someone else, but just hang on. There's a reason for this. I'm paraphrasing, but here we are. So when Jesus says that I and my Father are one, he's talking about that, he says, my kingdom is not of this world. He tells Pilate at the trial, he doesn't answer Pilate in the Gospel of John. And Pilate says, you're not speaking to me? Are you kidding me, man? Power to have you killed. And he says, you don't have any power over me unless it was given to you from above.
Right.
Because if I wanted to, I could pray to my Father, and 10 legions of angels would come.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, it's right there, and of course, he leaves in a cloud.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
He leaves in a cloud. In the Hebrew religion and the Jewish religion, the Exodus story with Charlton Heston and all that. But remember, they follow the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. We know UFOs, sometimes they can camouflage in clouds, sometimes they can appear out of the clouds. So the Hebrew people are trying to describe what they saw. It's the pillar of cloud by day, it's the pillar of fire by night. It's glowing. It glows. It stops. It starts. They camp out underneath of it. They follow this thing for 40 years. It's a UFO.
It is. With probably beams down every so often if they get lost to help them find their way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here we have it. We have Gabriel telling Muhammad, who's in the cave, recite. Uqwa. Uqwa means to recite in Arabic. And so Gabriel is everywhere. Gabriel is in the Quran, and he's in the New Testament.
Uh-huh.
And so we have an off-world intelligence telling Muhammad, recite, write this down. Recite and write this down. So again, it's coming from so remember, with the Exodus story, I know I'm bouncing back and forth, you don't have a Jewish religion until the Exodus.
Right.
There's no such thing as Judaism until they leave Egypt.
Uh-huh.
So who leads them out of Egypt? A UFO.
That's right. Who parts the sea? UFO.
The UFO. Yes, the pillar of cloud. It's right there. People can pick up their Bibles and read it, and I encourage you to do it because don't just take my word for it. But the book I'm writing now, and I do this all through the first book. And what does it mean for Christianity? What does it mean for Judaism? What does it mean for Islam when we have to come to grips with that these religions were started by off-world intelligences? Whether they were on purpose or not is not the issue. The issue is our ancestors saw this technology. Suppose we could go back to first century Palestine and you pulled out your smartphone. Oh my God.
Yes.
Okay, you send in Texas and the phone is ringing. That'd be pretty impressive.
That would.
That's the technology was impressive to our ancestors in the Bible. But now you and I know about discernment, and we know that just whether you're channeling somebody, whether it's just because someone's not in a body doesn't mean they're smarter than you. Doesn't mean they're more spiritual than you. Just because someone is from another planet doesn't mean they're more spiritual than you either. But that technology, it just wows you, and you give up your power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You mean like our government did? With
exactly. The grenade tree. Oh yeah, we worship technology now. But the new book, I talk about. I'm not dwelling so much in the past with the Bible and the Quran and what have you. The new book talks about. Okay, now we know. We know they're here. We got to find another concept of God that will keep us from killing each other.
Uh-huh.
And then we have to say, how do we, now that we know that we're part of a greater collective, how are we going to treat one another? That's what my new book is about.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's exactly what we're dealing with as well in the groups and such. I'm sure everyone's getting the same kind of message. It's really up to the people who are awake to pass on the information that's so very important. And the hybrids, I'm sure you feel, are a very, very important part of this.
I do. I really think so. I'll tell you what. Let me tell you what really plucks my nerves, and really not much does. But I'd like to think that. But I love the exo-political movement. I love exopolitics, and the thing, yes, then their egos getting in the way, and that's what human beings do.
Sure.
But disclosures happening all around us. Whether I'm on social media or I'm talking to people, well, you think they exist, or that ship, or was that a real ship? Well, I'm so far past that. We know, yes, star visitors are here. There's no need to discuss that anymore.
Right.
And that's what really gets on my. I mean, people are waiting for whoever Caesar is now. Obama's Caesar now. Clinton may be Caesar next. Whoever Caesar is, they're waiting for them to come out on the White House lawn and affirm, you guys were right. They are here. That may happen one day. There may be a sighting or something they can't explain away. But we know they're here. We don't have to work. We don't have to wait for someone to tell us what we know is true.
Right.
And so that's the only thing that gets on my nerves. That people, when you hear, or this is the smoking gun, or they're here. Let's move on now. They're here. They've been here, and they're not leaving.
And there's not just one or two types. There are
about 57 according to Clifford Stone.
That's right.
And there are many races. But that's the only thing that really gets on my nerves. People still trying to prove that ET life exists, or that we're waiting for, the government, look at all these governments that have released their files and stuff. Peru, Chile, come on. The United States isn't for various reasons, but, they say UFOs don't exist, their occupants don't exist, and to prove it, we have thousands and thousands of pages of classified information to prove to you that they don't exist. So come on.
Yeah. Very much so. It's ridiculous that
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
So we see in spirituals, you might have seen. Of course, myself, I've been shown many different types of ET children that I have, and in part, I've also heard these are some of the galactic languages I told you that I speak. Well, those are the communicators are the children, and they are talking not just to me, but to multitudes of people, and telling them that we're here. We want to connect with you. We're going to need translators, basically. So, what do you think about that? Do you think there's some truth to that?
At this point, I say anything is possible. Again, it's like in my book when I was writing, and I didn't use a lot of channel material. And I love channel material, but it has the baggage of the individual who's even clearest channel. I think it's true to that, but how I can't say no because it's not me. I just try. I just see what resonates with me. Because what I'm saying, people may say, well, Michael, that sounds awful fishy, and it may, but I can only share what I can share, and if it rings true to you, you use it or you don't use it. The beings that have come to me, the little Nordic, and I say little, they're huge, but, they say, what? We have come to help humanity on the next stage of evolution. They don't say all of us come. They say we have come. And they've said to me that the most difficult thing they've had to encounter with human beings was our fear of the other.
Oh, yes.
You see. But now, I put that out there. So if it resonates, then fine. I've heard some fantastic stories, and some of them I have to raise my eyebrow about. But that's just natural. How do you tell somebody, "Oh, that didn't happen to you"? No, are you sure that happened to you? You can't say that.
No, you can't. No, I've learned that in my experience group. Sometimes, especially now coming in, there are this next generation, this last wave of starseeds, and they are phenomenal. These kids come in firing, their DNA is firing, pretty much more. They probably are using more of their brains. They have psychic abilities. They have such immense knowledge that they will just be spilling off this stuff, and I'm going, wow, this is amazing. Because back in the 90s, I was getting these recurring dreams over and over again telling me that it was like an experience where there was a UFO landing and there was all these adults running and screaming, and then the kids and the teenagers standing there going, don't leave, communicate, they're okay. And
Yes.
a resounding thing that over and over and over and over played in my head was, the children shall lead them. So I don't know whether they're meaning the children that are coming in now, which possibly have some of their own hybrid DNA or, ET DNA, or the hybrid children themselves that may be coming back, or kind of a combination of thereof.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way to know,
Mm-hmm.
but you just kind of keep your heart open.
Yes, you do.
And that's all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And, and you just see where it leads. At least that's what I try to do. Because, listen, and I'm speaking more about the adults here.
Mm-hmm.
I will know what you believe by how you treat me.
Right.
That's how I know what you believe. You can be at the mosque tonight, it's Friday night. You can be at the temple tonight because it's Shabbos, it's sundown. You can be at Bible study on Wednesday and church on Sunday. And you can say, I believe this, I believe that, I believe UFO people are here and they're loving and let's do it all. And it's not about what you believe, it's how you act on what you believe.
Yeah.
And so that's for me, that's the only way I can discern, because your actions will speak louder than anything you ever say.
Oh, absolutely. That's great. That's absolutely right. We're going to have 3 minutes until we go into a little break.
Sure.
And then when we do break, we just mute our mics and go take care of whatever you need to do for that 5 minutes or so while they play a little song. And then we'll be back. But and the next question, when you come back, I have a question in the chat room that is asking talk about the wheel. Of course, this is like ancient aliens have talked about the wheel, and I'm sure you have a lot to say about the different kinds of UFOs and wheels that are seen in the Bible. So we'll give you a little bit of time, lengthy time when you come back, because we only have 2 minutes now, and I'm sure it's going to go longer than 2 minutes.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
And so then, and then I'm also going to ask you a question about, I feel that so much of what's happening for the experiencers and all the different types of ETs that are coming from everywhere in the last, say, 3 or 4 years, more than even before, is they're teaching us about how not to be judgmental, prejudiced, and all those things that this planet is so terribly guilty of. And so maybe we can do some things. You can give us some scriptures or some things about these two questions when we come back then.
Okay.
Okay, and again, I want you, on the break, I'd like you to tell me where they can find your book, give us your information, maybe your website, things like that.
Okay, I will definitely.
Oh, you can do it now. You can do it now.
Okay. You can pick up my book, Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible. You can pick those up at Amazon or Barnes & Nobles. The Kindle version is $4.99 on Kindle and Nook. The paperback is like $9.89, very reasonable. My website is michaeljscarter.com. You can write me there. You can send me an email at michaeljscarter@charter.net. And I will respond. Believe me, I will get back to you. I will be appearing on season 7 of Ancient Aliens. It's starting already. I shot 4 episodes in New York last July. They should be airing the end of September and into October. And I will be speaking at the Ancient Mysteries conference at the Edgar Cayce Institute on the weekend of October 10th. Actually, it's October 9th through 12th. I'll be there. Eric Van Doniken, just a great Giorgio from Ancient Aliens. We'll all be there, and it should prove to be a really good event. So if you can make any of those, appreciate the support.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you. Well, that gets us on to break time, and thank you so much. I'm really excited about hearing more.
Thank you, Miesha.